Hello and welcome to ET Auto Startup Adda. Like every Tuesday, it's 3 p.m. and I'm back with another founder of a startup in mobility space. This time we have brought in Ashish Aggarwal, founder and CEO of Vayu. Vayu is a two-wheeler shared mobility startup that works in B2C and B2B space. Mr. Agarwal has been working in different area. He does not have major experience in the automobile industry, but rather he's a engineer from Delhi College of Engineering, and he did his masters in business administration from IIM Calcutta, and then he joined a bank, and then he became a consultant, and finally after working for over 15 years, he has landed up as an entrepreneur in mobility space. Thank you so much, Ashish, for joining ET Auto. So just to give a brief to the viewer, a Startup Adda is a program that comes to you every Tuesday at 3 p.m. and we try to evaluate the startup that's are there in the domain or those which are coming up in this space, in the mobility space, be it innovators on the technology side or the business strategy side. That you look at the mobility space like this YU one, it is a mobility space, shared mobility space. We'll try to understand that. So welcome to you, Ashish. Welcome to the Startup Adda Station for Innovation. I just to begin with your presentation, just want to understand how are you trying to do things different. We see whole lot of shared mobility in two-wheeler space or car space or a lot of in electric mobility also there. How Vayu is trying to do things differently, and why should somebody look forward to Vayu when somebody wants to invest or somebody want to use your services? If you could briefly in 5 minutes tell us.
Of course. First of all, thank you, Nabil. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and thanks a lot to the viewers. I would also like to wish a very happy Eid to everybody. Before I walk into what in more details about what exactly we are doing, we are basically offering rental of electric scooters for long term. And when we say long term, it means a week, 3 month, 3 months, 6 months. Most of our customers are a mix of end consumers, B2C customers, as well as a lot of businesses. And if I talk about where the need of it is coming from, as such, EV is a very, very new industry. It is still emerging. The technology is still emerging. Players are still emerging. And that is where players like us come in, who are able to softly introduce these products to our users. They don't need to make very big investments. They don't need to buy vehicles. They can very easily, at a very, very low cost, purely from an app, they can rent these vehicles. They can get introduced to the whole concept of electric vehicles, because there is quite a lot of misinformation or cloud built around electric vehicles about infrastructure, charging. There's a lot of confusion, and that is where a concept like ours allows user to use these vehicles over a period of time, get acclimatized, and understand what is the benefit. Because as such, particularly with electric two-wheelers, there is no stopping now in India. The infrastructure requirements are already all met. There's a very heavy push from the government. There is a very, very clear-cut cost saving, and both corporates and users are increasingly understanding that, and which is what you see with some of our peers, particularly manufacturers of electric scooters, that the demand is through the roof. So right now, our job is to introduce these things to the general public, and to make the whole shift of India from petrol vehicle to EV easier and more and faster.
What are the biggest challenges or hindrances that you face on the way, and how are you trying to resolve them?
So for us, one of the biggest challenge or hindrance, as you would call it, is about user education. So as such, people in India, first of all, are not clear about electric vehicles. They are not clear about electric two-wheelers, and the concept of renting a two-wheeler or renting a scooter is almost alien to majority of Indians. So more than 90% of our time is just about introducing a service, what exactly we are doing, and the rest of it speaks for itself. We don't have to do a huge lot of marketing. For us, it is more about educating the customer, and the need is there in the market. It is there for grab.
There's a reluctance to adopt to the technology because there's a lot of inhibition when it comes to availability of charging infrastructure. Yours one is a swapping model, but they might be scared that how do I swap? They do not have enough number of outlets or points where they can go and swap the battery. Or do you think these are the challenges that is the major hindrance for the people to adopt to the electric mobility in terms of two-wheeler?
So the thing is, as you absolutely rightly point out, that it is there is a very very strong information going around in the market that swapping is a challenge or charging is a challenge. But if you look at our particular two wheelers, they're very very well suited to intra-city work. So if you have to travel within the city, you have to travel from Delhi to Gurgaon, or Delhi to Noida, or within Noida or within Gurgaon. Our scooters provide a range of about 70 kilometers on a single charge. And looking at a city like Delhi, that is easily equal to about 2 hours of driving, hard driving. And people can also charge it anywhere. These scooters come with a portable charger. So in our experience, we have found that for about 95% of the customer, the requirements are easily met for about 28 days out of 30. So 1 or 2 days of a month where they need to go longer distances, they need to do something more, they can do a top-up charge anywhere in Delhi. And they are not really dependent on infrastructure for that. And we see that happening also most of our times with the rentals, because we are not asking people to spend 50-60,000 buying a scooter. Our plans start from as little as $1,000. So people have a very small amount, they can try it out. If it works for them, brilliant.
So how does the customer's investment versus what is the criteria? Suppose somebody spends 1,000. So what is it? If somebody spends 10,000, 5,000, how does it differentiate? What are the
So
parameters?
you mean to say from an investor point of view or from a
No,
customer
no,
point
from
of
the
view?
user point of view. You said that you
From the
can rent for a
Absolutely.
thousand bucks.
So we come with various different prepaid plans. Our smallest plan is a 1 week plan, which is for a cost of 950 rupees, all inclusive. Within this, we deliver the vehicle, we pick up the vehicle from the user's home, we provide all kinds of maintenances anywhere in the city,
So
and
for a
it is
week,
included taxes.
suppose my battery drains in a day. What do I do?
Sorry, suppose you're.
My battery drains in a day. I
Mhm.
live in Noida, or suppose I live in Janakpuri or one part of Delhi.
Yes.
How do I go on replacing? Do you send somebody with the battery to replace, or how does it work?
So typically, if your battery runs out of charge, the scooters come with a portable charger. You can charge it anywhere. You can find a shop nearby. You can find a charging point nearby where you can charge it. And we are very
Does it
soon
work
also.
on a existing socket that we have in our home, or you
Absolutely.
need a okay, okay, great.
No, it works with very simple light points also. Any socket at your home.
So, Ashish, you did not have any major background in automobile. You worked in banks. You are into finance. Your masters in finance. You worked in banks largely, then consultancy. How did this happen, and what was the trigger point? Why did you think that you should get into this space?
So it's a very good question. We I did spend quite a bit of while in logistics, in supply chain, and so on, which is where I got exposed to the challenges around transportation, challenges around how things happen. Came back to India in 2017 after spending about 10 to 12 years outside India, and it was winter of 17, and I saw the whole city was enveloped in darkness. Although it was Diwali time, it was supposed to be bright and lighted, but the whole city was dark, and it was darkness of which pointed to a very bad health. And for me, it was very surprising that we are talking about developing India, made in India, and India doing so well, and yet we are offering such a bad health to our children, to us, and everybody. So I realized that something needed to be done, and
So how did
it
you
gone
calculate
like
the
this.
economic sense? That I understand that of course Delhi or India has uh, many polluting cities. I think we rank almost number one. 15 of the
Absolutely, yes.
what top most polluting cities are in India. That's obvious. That could be one drive. But there has to be a business sense, especially when you are getting into, because you have to pay off the salary, you have to make a business sense. So, how did you make a sense there? And what was the strength that you found in this space, and that you made you think that, okay, this makes a business sense, and I think I should explore this business opportunity?
Absolutely. So your question is actually two parts. The first part is on the financial side of it. So on the financial side, electric scooters have been around for a very long time, but the right technology at the right price happened very recently. So I would say in the last 1.5 to 2 years is when the battery prices came to the right place. The battery technology has matured enough, and also support things like IoT and tracking of vehicles is at the right place. So that was the important financial parameters which needed to be at the right place for us to be able to make a profit. And the second part of it is about what makes us different, how we are able to add value. And the business that we are currently in, it's very operationally sensitive, in the sense that most of our business is about maintenance of our vehicles. Because if you look at our customers, most of the time the availability of the scooter is linked to their earnings. So whether you are an office goer or you're a small business or you're a B2B customer, if you don't have a scooter for a day, you lose the earnings for that day. So people cannot afford any downtime, and which is where our business is very different. We provide almost 99% uptime to our customers, and within Delhi, we provide repair and maintenance within 2 to 3 hours. So that means if you have a breakdown, we are there within 2 hours. And for the customers, that's a huge value.
So your prime customers are the delivery guys, that like the big baskets and other companies which operate in delivery business, or individual users. How many vehicles are already on road right now, and what's your target going forward?
So currently, we have close to about 300 vehicles. A large percentage of them are actually with individual riders and small businesses. When I say individual riders, these are commuters. These are people who don't have a direct metro link, or maybe even the cost of metro is comparable to a cost of scooter for the whole day. Small businesses are small shops, small industries who do sundry work, payment collection, small delivery of goods, and so on. So those are the major chunk of the scooters. Other than that, we also have some B2B customers. So currently, we are deployed at locations of Big Basket. We are in discussions with multiple other grocery delivery, medicine delivery, as well as courier companies. And we also have, as you rightly pointed out, a chunk of our customers in the delivery boy segment who are doing food delivery and various other sundry jobs. So that
What
is one.
what
Yeah.
is your scalability target for your business? Where do you see yourself when the business is full blown, and where do you see the majority of your business coming from, and where are you putting your all bets?
So we see a majority of the business in the long term coming from the B2C side, because if you look at it, India is close to 20 crore two wheelers, and about a large percentage of that has to become electric. Now the market per se, the economy per se, or the people of India don't have enough cash or enough capital to turn this into
Why will
you know
they rent it? They own it. Why will they rent it?
So the rental concept as such is a long term trend that is happening across India. If you look at it, in our previous generation, people didn't want to rent anything. Nowadays, it is more and more common. People didn't want loans. Now it is very common. So it's a difference of perception. In fact, there's a report from Niti Aayog which says that by 2035, about 35% of all passenger miles will be on shared
What's your
transport.
aim in next 5 years? How many vehicles you see on the red road? Or are you going to stick to two wheelers, or you will expand yourself to other segment like cars also?
No, we are not looking to expand into cars because the customer segment is very different. The requirements are very different. Uh, Hello.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can hear you.
Go ahead. So I'm saying we our customer segments are very very different. Our requirements are very very different, and as such, if you look at two wheeler itself, the requirement is staggering right now. So even today, as of today, we are sitting on a pipeline of close to about 1,500 vehicles, which we need to deploy in the next 1 month. And for us, going forward, we expect the next year to close to about 10,000 vehicles in the next 1 year, and our expectation 5 years down the line is to be over at 10 lakh vehicles. And it is very much, it is still a very very small part of the market. If you look at out of the 20 crore vehicles, that is less than 0.5%. So we are still only tipping the tip of the iceberg. We're still only going for the larger cities. We are getting demands from Varanasi's, Banaras, and Amritsar and Jaipur, different parts of India, and the sky is the limit for this
Ashish,
kind of solution.
Ashish, just sorry to interject. I just want to understand the idea. How do you see this scaling up in terms of number? Number one. Number two, are you yourself OEM or you are collaborating with some OEM to provide you the vehicles? And if you are an OEM, how are you going to get that expertise of developing a vehicle which requires heavy R&D and D and all? So, are you going to get a consultant on board, or how are you trying to get these vehicles for yourself?
So I'll answer the second part of the question first. We are not an OEM. We are working with captive manufacturers who are preparing products according to our specifications. Because the kind of experience we have, the kind of data we have, very few people in the market have. We recently completed about 20 lakh green kilometers, and so we know what part is failing at what frequency and how things are happening. So we are able to make changes on the scooter which even OEMs are not fully aware of. So that is the first part. The reason we are not being OEM is we want to offer a wide variety to the user. We want
That's
to
fair.
be able to shift according to what the user needs are. So if tomorrow a user requires Ola scooters, why not? If tomorrow they require a Bajaj scooter, why not? So that is the
Okay.
first part of it.
So that would also depend on the customer can put a request that I want this bike. You can acquire them and give it to your customer. That is also
Absolutely, absolutely. That is
that's
the end.
fantastic.
The
Ashish,
idea is, yeah. And
Ashish,
I'll take
before
this
I
one
go and
more,
invite the expert for the today,
please.
I just want to understand one last question. What
Uh-huh.
kind of seed money did you put in, and how does the investors' interest look like? How much you have been able to get from the investor, and how difficult it is to pitch to an investor and bring on board, and how much you really want to leverage your stake in terms of bringing investor. If you could quickly answer that, then I'll invite the expert for today.
So right now, as we speak, we are sitting at close to investment of about $600,000, which works out roughly to about 4 crores. That is the equity investment, and we are looking to ramp it up. So within, by April or June of next year, we are looking to raise another $3 million on top of this. Coming to a question on how difficult or easy it is, to Nabil, to be frank, for the right business, people who are doing the right thing, it is not difficult at all. So I mean, right now we are in the middle of our race, and we have got multiple offers. We have got offers more than the amount that we are looking to raise. So for the right business, for the right people who are doing the right thing on the ground, it is not at all a difficult thing.
So, how much have you really received, or the deal that you have closed so far?
So that will be a bit more difficult for me to comment on. It's already undergoing,
Okay, you
but
have not sealed any
I,
deal so far in terms of investor, right?
no, we have signed some deals, but
Uh,
I can tell you that this money is sufficient for us to go up to 5,000 vehicles
so,
in
what
the
is
next
that? If you
couple
could
of
share,
months.
how much you have raised so far?
So as I said, I mean the one that we have already done is close to about 4 crores, but the one that is all more underway, that is a bit more difficult for me to say.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. It's time to invite the expert for today to give his observations and if he has a question. You know, this expert, he has been part of a startup Adda for quite a few episodes. Let me invite Mr. Ashok Bhasin, global C-suite leader and member and advisory board of Blue Smart, another startup in the similar domain where you are. Mr. Bhasin, if we can connect to Mr. Bhasin, I would request Mr. my team to bring Mr. Basin on the screen. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhasin, for joining ET Auto Startup Adda once again. Hope you heard Ashish speak on his plans and idea and business potential. I would like to have your independent observation and your thoughts on this startup on 3 4 aspect that we every time evaluate on in terms of scalability, in terms of business model viability, in terms of acceptance of such business. How do you see this? Over to you, Mr. Bastin.
Thank you, Nabil, for once again having me on this session. And Ashish, hello to you as well, and congratulations on you
Thank you,
doing
sir.
something in the mobility and the transportation space. Uh, First of all, I would say that I strongly agree with you that this opportunity in the transportation and the mobility space, mobility of people and mobility of goods, is immense. I always say it is an ocean. It is literally one, and I think there are two things that are going to happen. Uh, the volume of movement of people and goods is only going to increase,
Absolutely.
and the speed and churn with which it is going to go up is actually going to increase manifold. So, whether you look at people or you look at goods around the world, particularly in India, where the consumption of consumer goods still is at a very low level, I can only vouch for the fact that it is a very very large opportunity. I also work very closely in the mobility space. I've spent a lot of time with Hero MotoCorp in a senior position, and before that, I've been in products that used to have to move and people that used to have to move. So congratulations on that. Uh, my understanding of your idea is that you are in the business of two-wheeler rentals, but you are not doing a point-to-point rental like some others, either in cycles like a player like Yulu, or scooters like a Vogo, or people who are
Absolutely.
doing subscription cars. Maybe you're a little bit like subscription cars like Rev, etc. Because you're
Yes.
not going to go into an hourly lease, you're looking at a daily and a weekly. So that is one distinction between you and a Vogo and a Yulu and that breed of people. The second is that they are, at least one of them is substantially ICE with some sprinkling of EV. The other one is cycles but electric enabled. And you are doing pure electric. So your product form is electric, your
Mm.
consumption form is subscription,
Yes.
and you are a non OEM service provider. Have I understood your proposition correctly?
Absolutely, sir. You're spot on it.
Okay, wonderful. So, my takeaway is what I call in my marketing parlance what you are attempting to do, and you can correct me if I'm using the wrong label. I think you are creating or co-creating a category because the penetration of electric is very, very low, but you're doing it through the model of sachet pricing, right? So you're bringing the overall asset cost, which could be 70,000, 80,000 rupees for a two-wheeler. You're bringing it down to small bites of consumption like a sachet for the consumer. And that
Absolutely.
sachet pricing is working at 950 rupees a week. Is that right? That's what you're doing.
A- Absolutely, and I would add one more point. So one is on the breaking down of the cost part, and the second is on the life cycle. So how we describe it, we are bringing innovation on how these things are owned, the two wheelers, and how they go through the life cycle. Because a lot of it, particularly with EV, it is very challenging to maintain them, to find the spare parts with a lot of manufacturers, and that is again where we come in. We take care of the whole maintenance part.
So the 950 rupees that I'm asking some clarificatory questions before I make more observations so that I understand you better. So the 950 rupees sachet pricing for the consumer for hiring or renting or leasing, whatever you want to call it, for a week of the scooter, over and above there is the charging cost which has to be borne by the consumer, correct?
Yes, that is
And
correct.
and
That
if it
works out to
and if it sorry if it is driven on an average 60 kilometers, I think several delivery vehicles will normally do between 60 to 100. Most personal mobility usage in intra-city, going back to my two-wheeler experience, is 60 and below. So let's
yes,
say if it is
absolutely.
60 kilometers a day, median average usage, what is the cost of charging that would occur to the consumer? Because I would like that to be added to the cost of 950 and then see the unit economics from a consumer perspective. And then I quickly want to go from there into the financing model that you have. So I'm just giving you a headroom there on what I'm thinking next. So help me understand the first one first.
Absolutely. So the typical charges for charging works out to close to about 10 rupees a day, and if you add VAT, that's about 1020.
Means 10 rupees for
And
60, 70
I'll just step one 60-70 kilometers. And if we compare it to the current petrol-based vehicles, that works out to about savings of about 30 to 40%. So typically, when you hear electric vehicles coming at 10 paisa per kilometer, it is quite a little bit of marketing lingo because a lot of costs are not added in it. But typically, what we observe is about 30 to 40% savings compared to petrol.
I think the headroom on that arbitrage of pricing advantage or cost advantage to the consumer may be more significant because I don't know what you're appropriating in the other costs, because most of the other costs, I think when you go to scale up, will not be variable costs. They will significantly get
Absolutely.
amortized. And I think the final index may be somewhere of 1:8 between the cost of running a cost efficient, well maintained, low maintenance electric vehicle two-wheeler, in my understanding of that business, since I have spent some time in that space for several years. I think the opportunity could be easily predicated on 1:8, 1:10. Of course, the preconditions are thinking through the battery life, thinking through the second
Absolutely.
life of the battery, thinking through of a low maintenance model, etc., etc. And today you may be having to drive several miles to reach a consumer. I don't know what your incidence rates are, etc. But I'm sure as you get learnings, your incidence rates will come down, because good, robust two-wheelers, say of companies like the one that I represented, are very, very low daily maintenance usage.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
because in the e-vehicle, the learning curve of the OEM and the maintenance and the service fleets are poor, therefore there is a lot of run cost. Otherwise, ideally, it should not need that, and that cost should get completely saved. So that's the first advice that I offer to you. Identify that and start building that into your financial model, not as something counting the money before it hits the cash box, but I would see that at least 30 to 40% is sitting there, because I'm saying 1:8, 1:10. You are saying 1:4. In my view, an equal 1:4 is sitting in these items. Would you
Absolutely,
agree with
you're absolutely right. No arguments on that. And we
And what about if there is a damage or repair required in that period of time? Suppose I take out the bike and something happens, who bears the cost?
So in case of our plans, the damage liability of user is limited to the first 1000 rupees. So in case he meets a big damage, he only pays the 1000 rupees. And if it's a small damage, he only pays for the replacement of that part. It could be 200 rupees, 100 rupees, whatever it is. And typically we get that from the insurance claims.
But the if
So on the
mechanical
second,
part then. So Abhi,
we lost Nabil.
just
We can't hear you, Nabil. You're saying
calculation.
something.
So what? Yeah, am I there?
Yes.
Yes, you're there now.
I'm there. Yeah. So I just did a small calculation. I got it that it per kilometer cost, excluding of the damage or repair, comes about 2 rupees 60 paisa per kilometer. If I add 950 plus 70 rupees for 7 days, so 1110 rupees the total, and then you divide by 60 kilometer a day or one charge, then 420 kilometers. That means about 2 rupees 60 paisa per kilometer the end user will have to spend, and that too he doesn't own the bike, and if there is a repair work he has to do the repair. So just want to understand, Ashok ji, you are a two-wheeler veteran from a vehicle which is about splendor or something of that sort. If you spend about 65,000 rupees on that, and then what would be the economics there, if you could? For the time being, I'll just remove the green quotient away and just want to make a
Yes,
business
absolutely.
economic sense. So if you compare these two.
Yeah. So on-road fuel efficiency of good, efficient two-wheelers is running at an average of about 60 kilometers to a liter. The fuel now is predicated at approximately 110 rupees average around the country. So you straight away have the first cost index there, 110 rupees tank every day at a liter, and you get a pull through of 60. So that's straight away 2 rupees gone. It's a 2
Yes.
rupees to 2 rupees equation. Then, as far as the cost of the product is concerned, and I was going to, as I said to Ashish, I was going to come to that next as to what is the financing model and what is the OEM product cost that he's taking. An efficient two-wheeler today in the mid-end segment of the motorcycle and scooter market will be approximately 80,000 rupees on road. So now it all depends on what financing cost you take. Most two-wheeler financing is done at an IRR rate on an average of approximately 25%. So that I think that the game, other than the variable cost, is what product cost is Ashish taking and what is the financing cost that he is taking, and that is what will determine. But at a macro level, I can say that, Nabil, very clearly, the economics for the electric cost efficient two wheelers, if run between 60 to 100 kilometers a day versus an ICE two wheeler, will significantly be in favor of the electric vehicle, even today, if the run cost is for 2 years.
if
That's
we
established.
change, if
That
we
is
change the
established.
scenario, owning an electric vehicle which costs about 70K, 75K, so what would be it if you compare in that scenario?
So
So
that's where I
Nabil,
want to come to Ashish in terms of what is the product cost that he's taking and how is he financing. Because at 300 vehicles, he could finance it either which way. He could put it in equity, he could put personal equity, personal debt. But when he wants to put 10 lakh vehicles on the road, or at least I would say 100,000 vehicles, which is a minimum mass that you would need, even in a Delhi NCR, between 1 lakh to 3 lakh vehicles you will need. Approximately
absolutely.
1 lakh vehicles you will need in the Delhi NCR region from a penetration perspective to have
Yes.
any significant impact on the consumer, significant impact hopefully on the environment, and certainly for financial viability of your business. Am I right? Approximately 100,000
Absolutely.
vehicles.
Yeah, your numbers are absolutely correct. I'll
So
take.
tell me, how would you look at financing this, and what product cost are you taking, and how are you building in the incentives that come from FAME and DPCC and other things, and how are you building in all of that? Because that can be a significant chunk.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll take the two questions one by one. I mean, Nabil's question is more ownership versus renting. That's from a consumer point of view. So Nabil, to answer that, we have a variety of different plans. Our longer term plan, which is a 6 month plan, is as cheap as 3,070 bucks a month, which works out roughly to about 99 to 100 bucks a day. And as Ashokji pointed out, 100 bucks is close to the cost of petrol itself. So, or even if you look at owning the electric vehicle, there are cost of batteries, there are maintenance cost, there are variety of other costs which come into the picture. So from that point of view, we've got a very very strong response. People are understanding what we're offering, and they're coming forward towards us. Answering your question, Ashokji, I think that is really the crux of the whole industry, because as such, when we look at the industry from our perspective, there are two primary things we are doing. The first one is with respect to the whole maintenance life cycle of the vehicle, which we are taking care of, and the second part of it is, as you initially said, we are picking up a cost and we are sashing it down to easily biteable chunks, which is what the user can pay. So you're absolutely right that on the second part, the cost of financing is very very critical. Right now, our cost of financing is working out between 16 to 18% per annum, and that is because the industry is very very new. The resale market for electric vehicles is still not established. So for a lot of financial institutions, they still struggle to understand the depreciated value of vehicles, the return. I mean, they're still a bit apprehensive. Having said that, as you rightly pointed out, give it a time of 1 or 2 years, and those financial costs will come down. And as more and more quality OEMs come in with more reliable products, we will see a lot better terms also on the financial side of things.
But from a product form perspective, you said you're working with a dedicated OEM. Uh, while I don't need to know who the dedicated OEM is, if it is confidential, it can stay that. You should only say what you want to say. But I would imagine to think, and I'm a great believer in the power of partnership, collaboration, and leverage. And
Mhm.
I think for a dedicated OEM to get to scale in terms of R&D, product cost, engineering, replacement, etc., and ultimately warranties will play a very critical role in terms of second
Absolutely.
life, etc., and that will directly impact your financing model as well.
Absolutely.
Would you not think that while initially you may have gone this route, but ultimately it will be better for you to be scaling up with scaled up OEMs? Either your dedicated OEM becomes a scale, because this is a business of volumes. And it is a
Absolutely.
business of volumes not only in manufacturing, but at three stages. It is a business of volumes because there is significant R&D effort required, which cannot
Yes.
be amortized if there is no scale. There is
Absolutely.
significant manufacturing leverage required because that is when you move the metal or light metal. And thirdly, from a maintenance replacement cycle, etc., you need scale to work to leverage. So I think if you're already thinking, great. Otherwise, I would encourage you to look at a large OEM arrangement opportunity, which will bring in these benefits. What is the product cost that you're looking at today? So, for example, what you're renting out today at 950, you are doing an outright buy, or you're doing like a placement from the OEM, or what are you doing? Are you buying these vehicles?
So we are doing a mix of both buying and leasing it from financial institutions. In terms of our product pricing, it varies from the 950 bucks a week works out to about 4,000 rupees a month, and our lowest cost plans are 3,070 bucks a month. So they vary depending on the tenure that commitment that the user is giving us, between 4,000 and 3,000 rupees a month. And coming back to your first comment about the manufacturers, I absolutely agree with you. However, at the same time, right now manufacturers are still building up their R&D. They're still building up their knowledge base in India. So for us, it is very important to identify who are the strong players. And as you rightly pointed out, we don't want to work with. I mean, if you look at electric vehicles, there are over 200 manufacturers in India, and we are very very selective in working only with players who are there for the long term, who are putting money on the product, who are putting money on R&D. We don't want to work with traders who are only getting kits from China, assembling them and flooding the market. So you're absolutely right on those aspects, and of course going forward we are looking to add one or two more dedicated OEMs, but we don't want to work with 10 or 15 or more.
So, what's the cost of the product that you're renting out today at 950? I mean, how does that compare with an on-road price of a typical EV or a typical ICE vehicle? A normal good ICE vehicle on the road today is around 75, 80,000 rupees mid-market. What would be the cost of your product? And how much of that is incentives, net of incentives? Are you getting the same incentives and all of that stuff?
So if of course we are. So it depends on the form factor that we are using. We have two categories of vehicles. We have both the low speed and the high speed. On the high speed, of course, there are FAME incentives. They work out
Low
close
speed
to
means below
about.
25, then there'll be no fame, right?
Yes, for the low speed ones, there is no FAME. So we have a mix of both the vehicles. Going forward, also we want to maintain that mix because a chunk of our customers are there who don't have a driving license, who are more comfortable with the low speed, and of course there's another chunk who have the driving license, who are okay with the high speed. So we are maintaining a mix of the two. On the low speed, there's no incentive. On the high speed, we are getting about 20,000 per kilowatt hour, which works out to about 40,000 bucks per vehicle, and that is including FAME subsidy as well as including the state subsidy. And the cost of these vehicles is between. So the market price is between about 60 to 75,000. For us, the cost works out about 5 to 10% cheaper than the market because we are picking them in bulk.
And how do you see your advantage? For example, tomorrow, if a large scale player like a Yulu, which is working on electric cycles and therefore in the low speed segment, with the power of the electric, they can really bring the power, or a Vogo model, which eventually from ICE can just substitute its fleet to EV. How do you see that, which is actually even more sachet pricing? Your sachet is daily and weekly. His or her sachet is you want to go from point A to point B, docking, dockless, go in, out. You're done in 30 bucks and you're out, right? So they are actually reducing the size of the sachet even further. Yours
Yes.
is a sachet of maybe 5 grams. Theirs is a sachet of 50 milligrams. So
Yes.
are they not outdoing on the same concept? And how do you see your strategic advantage and how are you planning to build your differentiation? because your
So
scalability will eventually depend on differentiation as well.
absolutely, absolutely. So two separate questions you have here. One is on the sachet size. So the way we look at mobility, mobility is getting very specific. So different people have different requirements. You have people who have a 2 year horizon. You have people who have a 5 year horizon. You have a 6 month horizon people, and we have people who have the need for the small sachets. Say they take a metro, get down at some place in the city, pick up a vehicle for 2 hours and take the metro back. So there are different requirements for different kinds of people. And right now, the good thing in India, there's a demand across these sachets. So if I look at the really small sachet size of an hour or half an hour, there's a demand for that. There's a demand for the daily rental, for the weekly, a separate demand for the 6 monthly, and even for the longer plans. So having said that, right now we are specializing in these longer plans, wherein it allows us to have a very high utilization. Currently, we are working at a fleet utilization of between 92 and 96%, and that means that our fleet is always on the road, is always with the customer, and is always paying us. If I mean tomorrow we may go in for the smaller sachets, but that means that we'll have to work around, we'll have to increase the pricing to be able to take care of that reduction in utilization.
Just a headline challenge: if the average uh, Vayu Brilliant two-wheeler is running 60 kilometers a day, it means it
Uh-huh.
is on an average on the road for approximately 2 hours in a typical city, and there are 24 hours to the asset's life. So the asset
Absolutely.
life is 24 hours, its utilization is 2 hours. There may be a few minutes spent on charging and maintenance. So actually, the asset is idle for 22 hours. Whereas if
Yes.
you go for the smaller sachet, the
Yeah.
on road, on use utilization, which is the fundamental principle on which the shared mobility concept typically runs, that the car
Mhm.
runs only 2 hours a day, balance 12 hours, it's not being used, or two wheeler. How are you thinking through that? Have I understood you correctly? 60 kilometers a day
Absolutely.
for two
Absolutely.
hours on the day,
Absolutely. No,
24
no,
hours on the
absolutely.
day doesn't change whether you calculate or me. That means 22 hours the asset is idle.
No, absolutely. So the whole idea of breaking down the sachet is to take out absolutely the kind of utilization that you talk about. So right now we have broken it down from say a 3 or a 5 year horizon to a week or a month. The idea is that if you are living in Delhi and you go to your house for 15 days, you can return the vehicle. If you are say in a job which is a project for 2 months, you can use the vehicle then and return it. So we have broken it down to a certain extent. Breaking it down further means that we will have intra-city demand and supply plays, wherein we could have a higher demand from a particular area and a lower demand somewhere else. And that means that there will be cost of rebalancing those fleets. So right now for us, the cost of rebalancing over a scale of a week or a month is working out brilliantly, and we are able to deliver a product. However, if we are to look at a hourly rental or a half hourly rental, then we have to take care of that cost of rebalancing the fleet versus the advantage of asset utilization. And somewhere, as the wages are increasing in India, as lifestyles are increasing, we will realize that the cost of rebalancing at some point will become higher than say a lower utilization. And then that is at least my thought, that given 3 years 5 years down the line, wages in India will be at an extent wherein it will become more expensive for you to try to utilize that scooter more, rather have two more scooters. So that is at least my thought. I might be wrong, but that is the assumption we are currently working on.
Yeah, I think the only one line thing that I would say, respecting all your views, is that ultimately the big lever is going to be the asset utilization. So
Absolutely.
if the asset is being utilized only for 10% of its daily life of 24 hours, if that utilization can be enhanced, then you're sweating the asset more and you're going to get a bigger bang for the buck. How to skin that cat? There are multiple ways, and we don't have to debate
Absolutely.
that. But I would just strongly advocate that as you build scale, taking that 10% to a much higher number would be most critical. Building second life of battery and second life of vehicle would be the other important thing. A strong collaborative effort with OEMs which are working to scale on R&D, manufacturing, and maintenance would be critical. And last but not the least, take away that balance 40% of overheads and maintenance and all of that by significantly changing the operating model. And with that, I think you will not only give people mobility, but you will give markets and cities clean air. and hopefully you will also create some profits for yourself and your investors whom you're talking to. But yeah, it's interesting. I've just offered some suggestions and points, Nabil. Hope they were relevant, and happy to stay engaged in the conversation as you take over back.
No, I think thanks a lot, Ashokji. You have hit everything on the nail. These are things which are already on our agenda. We are working with different timelines, of course. There are things which are more immediate,
Sure.
and there are things which are slightly longer duration. But absolutely spot on. I'm really happy to have had this understanding from you, to have this advice from you, because these are absolutely the points that we also understand are very critical.
My
The speed
best
at which you do
wishes.
them will differentiate the level of returns you will create and the
Absolutely.
competitive edge that you will create and the entry barrier that you will create. Everybody will think
So
about the points. Who will do it at what speed will determine whether you will create the entry barrier or somebody else will come and overtake. And
Absolutely.
I wish you success. Yeah. Back to you,
Thank
Nabil.
you,
thank
sir.
you so much, Ashish, for joining in, and thank you so much, Ashokji. As ever, you have given right advice. You have pointed out the weak and strong point that Vayu offers, and you have drawn a quite relevant comparison. Before we end and conclude this session, I have just one question for you, Ashokji. If you have to rate Vayu in terms of business scalability, in terms of business viability and adaptability on a scale of 10, 10 being the highest, how will you rate Vayu?
So Nabil, we've lost the audio. Yeah, I think to be fair, I've made the qualitative comments. I would say there are three things. There is market opportunity in terms of scale, which is the TAM or whatever level we want to kill it. I think on that I would say it's a very high. It's north of 8. It's somewhere between 9 and 10. I would say it is 10. The market opportunity is 10. I think on the business model, which will actually determine two aspects: the share of that market that Vayu may get, and the cost and profits that Vayu may create. I think those have to be thought through, the specifics that I have offered as suggestions, and some that Ashish and his team are already working on. So I would say it's too early at a stage. Uh, the significant differentiation versus competition at scale is yet to show itself. But Ashish, with due respect to you, you're at a very early stage. All the feathers of the bird can't show in the beginning, So you're sort of pretty much at a womb stage, and so I can't comment. I can just say the opportunity is large. If you think through the three or four things, Nabil, that I've mentioned, there could be 5, 7, or 8. They don't have to be 10 on everything, but the great thing is that they are exploiting an opportunity in a very large market space. But it is also a market which is attracting a lot of people. So, therefore, creating significant differentiation to scale and speed is going to determine who are the few who will be left standing on the deck, and the balance 190 odd may have to find something else to do in life. That's the answer. So, I'm not giving score on other things. They have to be worked
Thank
on. It's
you.
pretty much early stage. A lot of work to
That's
be
fair.
done.
That's fair.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Ashokji,
much,
for the kind
Ashokji,
words.
and
Yeah.
thank you, Ashish, for joining in. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ashokji, for your great insights. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching the Auto Startup Adda. This comes to you every Tuesday at 3 p.m. If you are interested in startups and want to know what are the opportunities opening up in mobility space, and if you want to ride this bandwagon, then do join every Tuesday at 3 p.m. when we bring in startup innovators, founders, and experts who give their view and points on where are the opportunity, what are the missing links, where are the white space, where can you leverage those white space and probably be part of this startup revolution. So keep watching Startup Adda Station for Innovation. See you till then. Stay tuned to ET Auto for more updates and news on automotive industry and also expert views around entire automotive and mobility space. Thank you so much once again.